Hello and welcome back to the Football Chat podcast. It's episode 106 today, where we will be discussing the 2026 World Cup and why we should be all very much excited for it. Of course, we are only, 4 months since the last World Cup, so it's a little bit early to be discussing the 2026 edition, but Qatar 22 was such a good tournament. I think the USA might improve in it. What are your thoughts to kick off today's video, Harry? What are your initial thoughts heading into 2026?
In terms of the actual on-pitch football, I think it would be very, very hard to top Qatar 22. We saw brilliant scenes in the final, in the semis, and right through the tournament. Really good games of football.
But I'd say even so, probably the most dramatic group stage of all time. And you mentioned the semis and the final, but...
And then, off the pitch, there's obviously a lot that, in terms of just being in a different country, just makes it so much better. And obviously... for English people, I could speak the language, I could listen to weird American opinions.
That is perhaps the worst reason the World Cup's going to be good for English people. No, I don't think that we're going to go too much into the different ethics of, the Qatari state and the United States, because I don't think either are perfect. But today we're going to talk about mainly the positives, mainly the stuff to do with the football, and of course what effects it being all across the United States will have. Of course, then location, as we've mentioned, USA, Mexico and Canada are joint bid. Well, it is, isn't it? Because usually when a country hosts, every stadium is within at least 100 miles of another one, right? Like if you think if the UK was to host, there'd be about 5 different ones in London.
It is very bizarre. I think America on its own would have been enough, but Canada, USA and Mexico, that's a lot of miles.
It is. I don't think there's too much difference between having just USA, having Canada or Mexico. It's still the same size as Europe, so it's going to feel different. And this is one of the points I noted down, actually, was that will the vast cultural difference across America be better or worse for the tournament? Because when you're in one country, there's different, a different accent in the north and the south of England, but overall you get generally the same sort of people. There's no massive differences. But, between Ohio and Los Angeles, they're completely different people. So, it's like they're individual countries, these states. So, it is going to feel like we're going to a continent, especially since it is all of North America.
Which obviously would never happen, which is why there maybe are a few reservations over...
Well, Euro 2020, the initial format is supposed to be across Europe. And we did end up seeing a lot of games across Europe, though, I think we only remember the England games because they were pretty much all in England.
Yeah.
And they're the ones we watched most prominently. But, obviously that was all across Europe. And I do think that the tournament lacked that sort of community feel, whether that was just because we were just out of COVID when the tournament was played. I don't know.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens, because obviously, as you say, different people, different rules across different states.
Yeah, in one rule you might be allowed to do something that you're not in another one. So, it's going to be quite interesting.
It's going to be very interesting.
Yeah, but I've noted down that it could be less defined but more inclusive. If you think that there's going to be a state that involved that you're welcome at or that you feel a part of, and obviously by covering all of America, everyone gets involved.
I think it's also interesting to have 3 home nations. Obviously that does affect
we ever seen it before?
Qualification point of view. I don't think so.
We've seen joint bids, of course. Japan, South Korea, I believe, is the most recent one in 2002.
But I think that the difference is places like that. Say they did one where the whole of the UK hosted it, that would still be nowhere near the same size as even just America.
Well, Canada. Canada's probably bigger than.
Let alone Canada, America, and Mexico. Equally much of Canada is it would probably just be Southern Canada, isn't it? I guess.
I have noted down the actual venue. So Canada does only have 2 grounds, Vancouver and Toronto.
So I guess when you look at it and go, that isn't really Canada's two games.
Yeah, the 2 stadiums, they'll probably host 2, maybe 3 games. But, so 12.5% of the matches are expected to go to Canada. Which, to be fair, considering that there's going to be quite a lot of matches, you consider... We'll get into, obviously, the whole format a little later, but that's not bad for Mexico.
I just have... what if you're playing a quarter-final in Canada, and then you've got a semi-final in Mexico?
Well, I imagine they'll do what they do at most tournaments. They'll have, one side of the draw all plays on the same sort of path, and then the other one all plays on the same sort of path, and you
even
don't
the
get those
final
massive-
venue. What are the finals in the middle of America and you're in Canada or Mexico?
Well, it's going to be a longer tournament, of course, and we'll get into format, as I say, later. But just have a look at some of the stadiums then, see who's being represented. You've got the MetLife, so USA have 11 different stadiums. You've got the MetLife Stadium in New Jersey, AT&T Stadium in Texas. You've got the Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas. You've got NRG in Texas again, so 2 Texas stadiums.
Right.
The Mercedes-Benz in Atlanta, and then GA. I don't know all the states ones.
Mercedes-Benz is the biggest one for me.
That
Oh, a
I
huge
can't remember which was
pretty
hosting the
massive.
final, but you've
Should
got
be that.
it could be the Hard Rock Stadium in Miami, Florida.
True.
Gillette Stadium in Foxborough, Massachusetts. You've got the Levi Stadium in California, Lumen Field in Washington, Lincoln Financial Field in PA, Philadelphia, I think, and then SoFi Stadium in California. So quite a lot of you covered quite a bit of America, but then
Yeah,
you've got
so-
like 2 in California, I think,
2 in Texas.
2 in Texas, and not many in the sort of middle. I guess you've got Texas, so that covers all of the middle of America and Kansas as well. No, I can't say I'm massively clued up on America, but yeah. So 11 different venues, 3 in Mexico, 1 in Guadalajara, 1 in Monterrey, and 1 in Mexico City.
That makes
Estadio
sense.
Azteca, Estadio BBVA, and Estadio Akron. So you're going to have two stadiums for Canada, 3 stadiums for Mexico, 11 stadiums for the USA, covering a lot of ground. That's going to be. Do you think that an environmental factor will be considered going into this World Cup? Because
It should be.
you imagine the teams will be flying.
The travel
This
miles.
is going to be quite the costly.
not even
Because
the team-
FIFA have
not
pledged
even
to
the
be
teams.
net zero, I believe.
The fans. Like, what if you look at all the people that going to every World Cup game in Qatar?
Well, they could all use public transport, couldn't they? Which you can't do that in when you've got to fly from Monterrey to Toronto.
But if you're a neutral fan, you might want to watch one game in Mexico and then probably hop on a flight and then go to Canada.
Well, then you just have to make a choice, don't you? The only reason Qatar was so accessible for challenges like that was because
That's like within
they were all
because
exactly.
they're just built in the middle of a desert.
They just put them all in the middle of
Your mum was
in
literally around
the country.
containers.
Yeah, and that's now been shipped off to help underprivileged teams
Yeah, that's pretty
and players.
That's quite good. That.
That's one of the many good aspects.
Yeah, I think it's going to be. I have my reservations about the tournament location.
Do you?
Yeah. Also,
Yeah.
the fact that they call it soccer is just going to probably annoy the hell out of me.
I think it's alright. I think this will be a fun World Cup for some cultural aspects.
Maybe it'll teach them how to say it properly.
Maybe it will. I think it's huge for football to have America hopefully get more involved because it is the biggest country. It's the country with the biggest sway over the world. So yeah, a country with a lot of power, a country with a lot of people will be useful for football to break into that market. So I think the World Cup's going to be good. 2026, hopefully very competitive as well because we've got some really good young teams currently that I think in 3 years' time should be looking really
it's still
strong.
a while away, but and obviously there's probably a lot to change between now and then. We've got a whole Euros in between.
And a Copa America, and AFCON, and
Nations
various
League.
other tournaments. Yeah,
my
the
favourite.
Nations League. Come on, but yeah, should be very exciting. On the format change then, because obviously we do have a massive change. This is probably the biggest change to the World Cup we've seen in over 40 years. I think it was the last time that the format has changed, maybe 30 years. So don't quote me on that. But it has been a while since we've seen a major format change. The big news, 48 teams increased from 32. What are your initial thoughts?
It's big.
I think it's important, though.
Again, I have my pros and cons. It's brilliant to get more teams involved. To give maybe teams that haven't managed to get in previous years a chance to get in. But it's just a lot more games. It's a lot more, play a lot more stress on players.
Is it?
Well, yeah, they have to play more games.
It's one more game per nation entry. If they were to reach the final.
That could still be another 150 minutes if the game went to penalties.
It could be, but I don't think that's a I don't look at that and go, well, let's not let 16 more teams compete because that's going to lead to more.
I don't know.
I think it's good that we're allowing more teams to compete. If
Also,
people had reservations,
tournament as well.
Indeed, it's going to be about 5 or 6 weeks potentially.
Whereas usually it'd probably be 4 or 5 weeks.
Usually we can get it done in 4 weeks. I mean, Qatar was done in about
3 days.
Yeah, final. First go tournament, it's about 3 days after for the final. But yeah,
that would be proud of it. Going to 48 teams means that it will quite literally be impossible for it to ever be played in Christmas again. It will now have to be played in the summer.
Yeah,
there's quite literally no way on earth you could fit a 48 team tournament in 3 weeks.
I think it's a big positive because when the 32 team tournament was made up and created, I think we only had 140 recognised FIFA national teams. Of course, now we're over 200. So I think it's crucial that we recognise the growth of football.
It's brilliant. It's brilliant, as I said, to see more teams join in. And obviously, you shouldn't not let teams in because they might get battered. But could it fall a favourite for one of the big teams if they draw 3 new teams that have come in?
I mean, that is unlikely because of the seeding system.
No, but what I'm saying is that I guess it gives more of an opportunity for other teams to get a nice, easy group.
Potentially, but does that not just set up a more interesting knockout round where we have all the best teams get through? Rather than seeing some giants get knocked out in the groups, which is exciting, don't get me wrong, instead we get these titan clashes in all of the knockout stages. But I do agree, maybe adding more teams makes the World Cup less exclusive.
Because yes, they're going to get there, and that's a brilliant achievement. But if they're going to get there and lose each group game 5-0...
Well, if we take a look at the FIFA World Rankings, you can continue making your point while I look this up.
I just think, and again, I think it favours some sides. Say England, France. Obviously I know France won, but say they drew each other in the round of 16 of the World Cup, and France had come from a group where they beat teams 7-0 every group game. England had come from a group where they had to play Brazil, or I don't know, other tough teams.
Yeah. So 48 teams is the new tournament, right? In at 48th right now is the Republic of Ireland. But to put this in perspective, 49th is Saudi Arabia, who did qualify for the 2022 World Cup and look good. Well, of course, but I don't think it's a negative to see...
Aren't Brazil top?
Yeah, I think so. Well, they've had the most sustained success in the international tournaments over the last few years.
Yeah.
But... yeah, so teams that will be there that weren't there in 2022 are teams like Ireland, Ivory Coast, Paraguay, Mali, Turkey, Norway, Scotland. I think it makes the tournament better to have some of these teams in there. Of course, you're going to get a few more duds, but you'd imagine that it's still going to be the 48 best teams. And if you just get one of these per group, you can still have excellent groups. I mean, you turned your nose up there at Ireland, but they're one of the most exciting young teams in the world right now. With talents like Evan Ferguson coming through. I think they're one of the strongest teams. You've got Gavin Bazunu. You've got such talent coming through at Ireland right now that maybe they will be competitive in a few years' time.
I guess.
I think it's positive to allow more and more teams to compete. We'll see less things like 8th placed in the world, Italy, not qualifying.
That standings there will massively change come 3 years.
Oh, of course, yeah.
It won't actually matter in the actual when it comes to qualifying for the tournament.
Yeah,
well, it won't mean a thing. But it'll be interesting to see what happens in 3 years. Obviously, there's another international tournament. Teams like Ireland, I don't know, they might prove me right.
Might be in a brilliant spot by then, but
I highly doubt it.
I don't think they'll win the Euros, but I think they'll be a good team by 2026. Maybe could win the 2028 Euros with a bit of luck. Who knows? No. Mate, Wales reached the semis a few years back with Gareth Bale and nothing else. So, who knows? But
if Ireland win the Euros for England, I will just quit England.
So this is how teams will qualify. 16 from UEFA. I don't think that's massively up on what it is now. In fact, that might be the same.
16 come from Europe.
So a third of the teams will be European sides.
That's not bad, saying that America is probably bigger than Europe.
Yeah, probably. Oceania then gets a confirmed one. At the moment, they don't get a spot at the World Cup. The only way that an Oceania side can get through is if they top the Oceania qualifiers and then go and beat some Asian sides. But now Oceania will get a confirmed spot and a third of a spot. Because they obviously then one more could get through in the qualifier. So we should see.
That's Australia, New Zealand and Fiji.
Yeah, teams like that. Indonesia, I
Do
think.
Fiji even have a
No, they might
national
be
team?
Asia. Yeah,
Who?
there's some strong teams down there.
But it's just going to be like Bob and his mate. Genuinely is, isn't it?
Right, you've got New Zealand, you've got SOL, what's that?
I don't
Somalia, I think. Papua New Guinea, Fiji, Tahiti, Vanuatu, something like that. Apologies again if I've got any of these wrong. But there's going to be some decent little teams there. What?
No, there's not.
There will
You
be.
can't go, oh,
American
Guinea
Samoa.
are pretty decent.
Currently 191.
I just...
I think it's good they've got a guaranteed spot, though.
Yeah, because at least
That should mean
Australia
Australia
guaranteed
through.
to
That's the
be
thing.
there.
If they get 2 teams through, that means there's 2 teams that are good enough to beat Asian sides.
Yeah. What did Asia get?
And so the Asian Confederation gets 8 now. 8 and a third. Africa gets 9. CONCACAF.
9. That's quite big for Africa, you know.
That is. Yeah.
So I can only
it's
really
pretty decent.
name Morocco, Egypt, Nigeria. That's quite a few. Good
Algeria,
teams there, yeah.
Ivory Coast.
There's quite a few good teams there. Yeah.
Yeah.
See, that's better though than rather than giving one to Papua New Guinea and Fiji.
Then we've got 6 from CONCACAF.
Where's that?
That is... I always get mixed up between CONCACAF and CONMEBOL. Can't remember which way around they are.
CONCACAF's like the little islands, isn't it?
Is CONCACAF North America or South America? I think CONMEBOL sounds like it's South America.
Yeah, because
CONCACAF. So CONCACAF will now get 6 and a third and then another third. So they get entered into 2 different playoffs. But when you consider that's America,
Canada.
Mexico, Canada, that's already
That's
3.
But they get through automatically because they're hosts, aren't
Of course. And then you have another 3 from CONCACAF. We'll just check. Yeah.
Who's
So
that going to be?
Costa Rica, Panama, Jamaica. That's a strong 3. And if not, you've got teams like El Salvador, Honduras.
Panama smacked about. Costa Rica actually looked pretty decent.
Yeah, Costa Rica could be a good
I've never
side.
seen Jamaica play football.
Mate, Leon Bailey.
Oh, they're gonna cook.
Cook so much, he slapped his mic. Amari Hutchinson is
Oh,
apparently
do you know what?
going to
Jamaica
declare for
pretty
Jamaica. So they could be a decent little team.
Yeah,
they
fair
used to have Wes Morgan. I don't think he'll be around by
No, I
2026.
highly doubt it.
Should we see if we know any other Jamaicans?
Leon Bailey's gonna make that team. But yeah, no, that's pretty. That's...
Well, just checking the Jamaican nationals. Oh, they don't even have a squad on here.
Oh, brilliant.
But I've given them a squad. But you've got Haiti, Trinidad and Tobago,
You can
Guatemala,
name-
Suriname,
There's no
Nicaragua.
way. Who plays for Guatemala?
Dominican Republic,
There's no way they found 12 people to play for Guatemala.
Cuba, Barbados. There's some interesting ones here. There's quite a lot from CONCACAF, to be fair. So that should be 6 there, 6 and then a third, and then another third, and then 6 from CONMEBOL as well. So, which is quite harsh.
Yeah, when they're given 3 to the host nations and 3 to.
Because as soon as you go Brazil, Argentina, Uruguay, Colombia, Chile, Ecuador, there's none left. Then the next team has to get through.
Peru aren't great.
Peru, Paraguay, Venezuela, Bolivia.
That's only 4.
I guess
left
it's
there,
small,
isn't
isn't it?
Yeah.
It's quite a small
So
federation.
really that many countries in South America.
When you think about it, they're quite big, aren't they? Brazil's like
And
huge.
Chile is literally just the whole whole west coast.
Yeah. South Coast on the side. Yeah, smashed it. But yeah, so that is how they will be divvied up. Quite interesting that. And of course, we did think there could be 3 team groups were suggested. Luckily, they've been that off now, FIFA, and they have officially stated that it'll be 12 groups of 4 teams rather than 8.
I mean, it's 3 groups on Football Manager.
It is. That'll be the only form that it exists in.
Yeah, so 12 groups of 8.
12 groups of 4 rather than the current 8, so that'll
So
give
12 groups
you...
of 8, blimey, we're playing 72.
So once you send the top 2...
that is terrible maths. 96 games out. 96 teams out.
Once you send the top 2 through, that'll give you 24 teams. I imagine they'll make up the other 8 by doing the same thing as the Euros do and giving... putting you through based on who's got the most points. I imagine how that will go.
Rubbish, isn't it?
Is it?
You think is though, if you had more time, they'd probably do a playoff round.
Yeah. Yeah, probably. But yeah, so it'll be 104 games rather than the current 64. I mean, this is the games you're talking about, but that's not for the players. The players don't all play 104.
No, that's a lot of games for the fans. That's a lot of games for the broadcasters. That's a lot of games
For us.
Yes,
We're streaming.
that's a lot.
2026, 3 years' time, who knows where we'll be.
Also,
if we are
it's going to
still
mean
here.
that people miss big games. There's so many games going on, you're bound to miss games.
Not necessarily. 4 games a day, you should see all the groups.
Yeah, but
It'll only be those final group stage matches, which is usually
But if you're
when
going
you
to
miss
watch
games
4
anyway.
games a day, you've got to watch 104 games for 4 games a
That's
day.
the usual
I mean,
Euros
I
and
love
World Cup
I love
format.
football, don't get me wrong, but 104 games, it's a lot.
It is. It is quite a lot, but I'd still watch it, 100%.
I will, but I'll probably be a little bit fed up on the final. No, I won't be, actually. If England are there, definitely not. England have to win it. That's it, what I do, it'll be so competitive.
Yeah. We've got a closing question. I don't know how much longer this will make this pod, but yeah, it's been a decent length. But what makes a good World Cup? That's a sort of closing question. And of course, you guys can get involved in the comments down below. I want to hear from you guys what you think makes a good World Cup. We'll give a sort of an answer here. What do you think makes a good World Cup?
I have 2 things. Entertainment factor on the pitch. Football has to be good. They're all 0-0s. What's the point? It's dull. Might as well go watch the Premier League.
Yeah.
And then I think availability to the world, to the fans, whether they're going and travelling there.
Do you mean accessibility?
Yeah, not availability. That's like, yeah.
People can watch it. Yeah. Okay.
No, but in terms of being able to, everyone can get there. So no matter what country.
So inclusivity as well, maybe.
But also in terms of fact, so it can be watched globally. In every country, because there are Guatemala fans. If they make it to the World Cup, then they're going to want to watch it. I don't know if football's available in Guatemala.
I think they know what football is in Guatemala. Yeah.
No, but I don't know coverage. There might be very good coverage.
They might not. To be fair, I don't know much about Guatemala, so I'm not going to give any comment.
Be accessible, and it has to be entertaining.
My favourite thing about the World Cup is the community feel that the country sort of takes on for a few weeks. You really get an insight into.
Why America worries me.
Well, yeah, I was about to say that. You get an insight into the culture of the country. I remember back to Brazil 2014. Yeah, it was 2014, wasn't it? It was brilliant. You know, yeah, the vuvuzelas are a bit annoying, don't get me wrong, but, you know, seeing the Brazilian culture, the flair, the style, the music, it was just amazing. I thought, you know, you really get an insight into their culture. You really feel like you're part of that country. I feel like everyone in the country feels like they're part of something for 4 weeks. I think that's a really crucial element of the World Cup. I fear that with it being in America, where the whole, like, everyone's split up. It's like if you did it across Europe, maybe we'll lose that individuality, that community feel, because there will be certain states that don't host it. You might have to travel 3 hours, 4 hours to get to the nearest stadium.
The only thing I will say is obviously that America very much so has the infrastructure,
of course,
to hold the World Cup, which is obviously vital.
Yeah, and it hasn't been long since the last time the US held the World Cup in 1994. Considering that England haven't hosted one since '66.
We won it.
Why
are we not hosting it again then? You know, it's been 57 years.
Well, England are in the bid for 2028 Euros as well as the 2030 World Cup.
By the time we get to 2026 World Cup, it's been 60 years since England had won it.
Is it coming home in America?
It is.
It's a very edgy predictions, but yeah, hopefully so.
We're already excited, you know, we've got some internationals, you know, this is going out on the Fridays, the people that joined us yesterday to watch Italy-England.
Hopefully the millions
and obviously we're live again on Sunday.
Yeah, join us for that.
England-Ukraine.
Should be a good game. England, second game in the World Cup qualifiers, hosting Ukraine. Of course, by the time this goes out, we'll know the Italy result. So either you guys will be crying in the comments or will be joyous in the comments. Yeah, a bit of optimism. We're bad at Italy, and here we are. This could look horrendous if we've lost 6-0.
Harry Maguire's now playing, got sent off.
100%. 100% happened. But yeah.
Looking forward to 2026. Long time
Indeed.
away.
Very excited for it. In the meantime, loads more football. Make sure to join us for all the coverage here on TFC. But of course, that is where I think we'll bring this podcast to a close. It's been a nice conversation today. If you have enjoyed, make sure to leave a like, comment, and of course, subscribe if you're new around here. It massively helps us out. Don't really have a subscriber goal this year, but it's just as many as we can get, and building a beautiful community over here on YouTube.
Stars will land on the moon.
lovely phrase.
All hit stars, obviously.
Yeah, crash and burn. But hopefully that doesn't happen.
Okay.
But yeah, that is all for us today. Thank you all very much for watching or listening, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.